Before Europe knew of Venezuela, people thrived there. They were the land's first inhabitants. Diverse cultures emerged across varied landscapes from the Caribbean coast to the Andes Mountains and across the vast Orinoco plains. These were societies deeply connected to their environment. The Carib peoples were known for their fierceness. They were skilled navigators and warriors. They dominated much of the northern coast and islands. The Arawaks, more agricultural, settled further inland. They cultivated yucca, corn and beans. In the Andean highlands, the Tumoto-Cuicas developed sophisticated farming. They built terraces and irrigation systems. Their skills were remarkable for the era. Daily life was a blend of sustenance and spirituality. Hunting, fishing, and farming provided food. Pottery and weaving were common crafts. Shamans played a crucial role in their communities. They were healers and spiritual guides. These indigenous societies left a lasting legacy. Their presence shaped the very soul of Venezuela long before the arrival of European ships. Christopher Columbus sighted Venezuela in 1498. He called it Land of Grace. This marked the beginning of a new, brutal era. Spanish conquistadors soon followed. They were driven by dreams of gold and glory. They sought to claim vast territories for the Spanish crown. The indigenous peoples faced an overwhelming force. Their world was about to be irrevocably changed. Resistance was fierce but often futile. The Spanish quest for wealth was relentless. Tales of El Dorado fueled their expeditions. They searched for mythical cities of gold. Instead, they found fertile lands and pearls. The indigenous populations were enslaved. They were forced to dive for pearls. They toiled in newly established mines and plantations. The encomienda system granted settlers rights over native labor. This system was harsh and exploitative. It led to widespread suffering and death. European diseases like smallpox and measles decimated native communities. Entire populations were wiped out. Colonial towns were established. Spanish language and Catholicism were imposed. The impact of colonization was profound and devastating. The early 19th century brought winds of change. Discontent with Spanish rule grew. Creoles, people of Spanish descent born in the Americas, sought power. They resented the dominance of officials from Spain. The ideas of the Enlightenment and the American and French revolutions spread. They inspired calls for liberty and self-governance. Venezuela was ripe for a revolution. A new leader would soon emerge to spearhead this fight. His name was Simón Bolívar. Simón Bolívar became the face of South American independence. He was a charismatic and determined military leader. He hailed from a wealthy Creole family in Caracas. Bolívar envisioned a united continent free from colonial rule. He dedicated his life and fortune to this cause. His military campaigns were audacious and often brutal. He faced numerous setbacks and betrayals, yet his resolve never wavered. He earned the title El Libertador, the Liberator. The Venezuelan War of Independence was long and bloody. It lasted from 1810 to 1823. Patriots fought fiercely against royalist forces. Key battles like Carabobo in 1821 were decisive. Bolívar's strategic genius was evident. He inspired loyalty and sacrifice among his troops. Independence did not bring immediate peace or stability. The 19th century in Venezuela was a turbulent period. It was marked by political chaos and civil wars. The new nation struggled to define itself. Power vacuums emerged after Spanish rule collapsed. Ambitious military leaders, known as caudillos, filled these voids. These strong men commanded personal armies. They controlled vast regions of the country. Their rivalries plunged Venezuela into constant conflict. José Antonio Páez was a dominant figure in the early post-independence years. He was a hero of the independence wars. Páez ruled Venezuela directly or indirectly for decades. He represented the interests of the llaneros, the plainsmen. His rule brought some order, but also authoritarianism. Other caudillos constantly challenged central authority. This led to frequent uprisings and coups. The country lacked strong, unified national institutions. Economic development stagnated amidst the turmoil. The Federal War from 1859 to 1863 was particularly devastating. It pitted liberals against conservatives. It resulted in widespread destruction and loss of life. Antonio Guzman Blanco later emerged as another powerful caudillo. He ruled for nearly 2 decades, from the 1870s. He brought a degree of modernization and centralization. The early 20th century brought a dramatic shift. In 1914, oil was discovered in significant quantities. The Mena Grande field, near Lake Maracaibo, gushed black gold. This discovery would fundamentally alter Venezuela's destiny. The country, once poor and agrarian, was on the cusp of immense wealth. Foreign oil companies flocked to Venezuela. They brought investment, technology, and expertise. The era of big oil had begun. Oil production rapidly expanded. By the late 1920s, Venezuela was a leading global oil exporter. The revenues transformed the national economy. Dictator Juan Vicente Gómez ruled during much of this early oil boom. He used the oil wealth to consolidate his power. He modernized the military and paid off foreign debts. Some infrastructure projects were initiated. Roads and ports were built to support the oil industry. Caracas began its transformation into a modern city. The oil boom had profound social consequences. It spurred migration from rural areas to oil camps and cities. A new working class emerged in the oil fields. Traditional agricultural practices declined. Venezuela became increasingly dependent on oil revenues. Wealth became concentrated in the hands of a few. Social inequalities widened significantly. Section 6. Democratic Aspirations and Economic Shadows, the Punto Fijo Era. After decades of dictatorships, a new era dawned in 1958. A popular uprising overthrew dictator Marcos Pérez Jiménez. Venezuela embarked on a path towards democracy. The main political parties signed the Punto Fijo Pact. This agreement aimed to ensure political stability. It established a power-sharing arrangement. Acción Democrática, or AD, and COPEI became the dominant parties. They alternated in power for the next 40 years. This period saw relative peace. Venezuela became a showcase for democracy in Latin America. Oil revenues funded social programs and infrastructure development. Education and healthcare expanded. A growing middle class emerged. The country enjoyed a period of prosperity. This was especially true during the oil price boom of the 1970s. The state nationalized the oil industry in 1976. Petróleos de Venezuela, or PDVSA, was created. This gave the government greater control over its primary resource. However, underlying economic problems began to surface. Venezuela remained heavily reliant on oil. When oil prices fell in the 1980s, the economy suffered. The country accumulated significant foreign debt. Austerity measures were implemented. Section 7. The Bolivarian Revolution, Hugo Chávez's ascent. The discontent simmering since the Caracazo found a voice. Hugo Chávez, a charismatic army lieutenant colonel, emerged. In 1992, he led a failed military coup. He was imprisoned but gained national attention. His televised surrender speech resonated with many. He criticized the corrupt political establishment. He promised a new path for Venezuela. Upon his release, Chávez formed a political movement. He prepared for a different kind of takeover through the ballot box. Chávez won the presidential election in 1998. He campaigned on a platform of radical change. He promised to end poverty and corruption. He invoked the legacy of Simón Bolívar. He called his movement the Bolivarian Revolution. His victory marked a turning point in Venezuelan history. He quickly moved to consolidate power. A new constitution was drafted and approved in 1999. It increased presidential powers and extended term limits. State institutions were reshaped. Chávez implemented ambitious social programs known as. These programs focused on health, education, and food subsidies. They were funded by high oil prices in the 2000s. Millions of Venezuelans benefited from these initiatives. Section 8: Crisis and Exodus, the post-Chávez era. Hugo Chávez's hand-picked successor, Nicolas Maduro, assumed the presidency. He narrowly won a contested election in 2013. Maduro inherited a challenging situation. Oil prices began to fall sharply in 2014. This exposed the vulnerabilities of Venezuela's oil-dependent economy. The government's economic policies faced mounting criticism. Price controls and currency restrictions led to severe distortions. Shortages of basic goods became widespread. Inflation started to spiral out of control. Venezuela plunged into a deep economic crisis. Hyperinflation rendered the currency almost worthless. Businesses closed, unemployment soared, public services, including healthcare and electricity, collapsed. Malnutrition became a serious problem. The crisis triggered a humanitarian emergency. Political tensions escalated dramatically. The opposition won a majority in the National Assembly in 2015. But the government used its control of other institutions to sideline the legislature. Protests were met with repression. The socio-economic collapse led to a massive exodus. Millions of Venezuelans left the country. They sought refuge and opportunities in neighboring nations and beyond. Section 9: The enduring spirit, resilience, and hopes for tomorrow. Despite years of profound hardship, the Venezuelan spirit endures. Ordinary citizens display remarkable resilience every day. They find ways to cope with shortages and uncertainty. They support each other through informal networks. Small acts of solidarity and entrepreneurship emerge. Families rely on remittances from relatives abroad. Communities organize to share scarce resources. This quiet determination is a testament to their strength. It is a fight for survival and dignity. Civil society organizations continue to work under difficult circumstances. Human rights defenders, journalists, and activists strive to document abuses. They provide aid where possible. They advocate for democratic solutions. Their work is often risky. They face harassment and intimidation, yet they persist in their efforts. They represent a crucial voice for those suffering. They keep alive the hope for a more just and open society. Their courage is an inspiration. The path to recovery for Venezuela will be long and arduous. Rebuilding the economy will require fundamental reforms. Restoring trust in institutions is essential. Healing the deep social and political divisions will take time.